Oh, sorry. Curtis is the singer, not me. Just in case
so
you were
nice.
wondering.
So nice. I really felt your sincerity there.
Curtis can sing great. I can sing okay. Our worship pastor, Jason, can sing awesome. His wife can sing phenomenal.
Yeah, there's levels to these things.
Yes, there are. They're both opera singers, like real time, big time, like opera singers. Like either one of them could be like Pavarotti or better at that level. They have that in them. It is amazing, and we get the benefit of that. It's awesome.
Serious range. So
Interesting.
Okay.
I am. Let me see. I'm trying to see if that hum is coming from me or you. It is you. Why am I hearing that? I'm getting a 60 hertz ish. It's not like a buzz. It's maybe even a little bit lower than that. It's kind of a yeah, right there. Boy, what was that? What did you just
I'm messing with a cable.
Yeah, so it's the cable. Okay.
Is it still doing it?
Are you touching it right now?
No.
Yes, I'm hearing it. Whoa, it just got even worse. Wow. Yeah, it's worse. I don't hear anything. Say something. Not hearing anything from you. Nothing from you. We are doing a little troubleshooting. Curtis has some hum in his cable, and he is, I don't know, maybe he's pulled it out. I don't know. But we don't hear anything now. I wonder, did your thing switch to a different? No, it didn't, because it would have switched to like the built-in mic. So, hello everyone. Hi, we are glad you're here. I'm going to go double check and make sure that I see us live over on YouTube. We are doing a little bit of troubleshooting. Curtis had some hum, and he's working on that. And I'm just trying to get YouTube to refresh. There we go. All right, so I'm going to put that right there, so it's right in eye view. And hope everybody's doing okay. We're glad you're here. Today we're going to be talking about some of our favorite hardware, things that we like, that we rely on, that we use. And we are, it's interesting. We're doing it not from a keep your expenses down, save money on these when you buy these things, right? But you get a ton of value out of these things. Does that make sense? Like one of the mixers we talk about, is $3,000 or $4,000. So it's like, oh, it's $3,000 or $4,000 for a mixer. However, if that mixer lasts you 10 years and lets you do just a tremendous amount of use out of it, like do your live stream audio as well as your front of house audio, things like that. If you can get that kind of value out of something, it's worth the price, especially for that longevity. As opposed to, say, here's a $300 camera to get you started. No. I've got like a $1,500 camera that's going to last you for 10 years, and it's going to let you be 3 or 4 cameras worth of use versus just one, on Sunday morning. So, that's the kind of stuff we're talking about. I'm still not getting you, buddy. There you are. You're on now.
Can you hear me?
Yes. I still hear the hum. Are you plugging into the mic input on your laptop?
Yep. Just like every week.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I've got a couple of little USB audio adapters. I want to bring one over and let you try that. Do you have an extra USB slot?
Sure.
Okay. Well, not right now.
Yep. I think we'll have to roll with the hum today.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. It's weird. I just noticed it today. Well, and folks, that actually brings up one of the things. Here's a free piece of advice. When you're using your laptop, or if you're using a desktop computer, and you're pulling sound from a device like a like your mixer, or in this case, he's using a microphone. If you are plugging into the audio input on your machine, your laptop or your desktop computer, if you got a little mic input and you're plugging into that, for me, that's kind of the last resort. It's like you can always use that as your backup if you need to. The quality on that is not necessarily really good. You've got radio interference, which is something that I think that we're kind of hearing. We're getting a little bit of interference either through the cable itself or through the connector on the jack, right? Whereas if you use like a USB audio device, which means you've got this outboard box, whether it's a mixer, whether it's a little adapter or whatever, you got this little outboard box that you are then plugging into, and then the connection is going in through a USB. It becomes digital out here, right? And then goes into your machine as a one, series of ones and zeros. You end up with higher quality. You end up with less. In this case, we have this annoying little hum that, if we stop and if there's just like dead silence, then we can hear it. So just food for thought. If you can use an outboard audio interface, a little preamp box or a mixer or something like that, you definitely want to use that. So that was free. We hadn't even started the show and you guys are learning. Is it just me, Curtis, or do they get like immediate value? I mean, we show up and the value. Yeah, and the value just starts pouring off of us.
We're delivering value all the way to the Netherlands right now.
That's right, the Netherlands. Who's in the Netherlands?
Yes.
Petra, a very dear longtime friend. Wow, that's awesome. I love Petra. She is awesome. She is a live streamer. She is a video producer. She works in radio.
If I had a daughter, that's what I wanted to name my daughter.
Really?
It's a great name. Great name. I didn't have a daughter.
No.
But great name. I commend you for having good parents. That's basically all we can do. I mean, I don't think you probably didn't pick that name, but they did. They did a really good job. So
I'm glad Petra's here. She's active in the Hacks group. She shows off different setups that she's using, things like that. Answers questions, poses questions, does stuff like that. She's awesome. She's been around since I want to say since the Geek Beat days. Good old Petra. I'm so glad you're here.
All right. Well, we ready to roll?
I think so. I've got. I'm just trying to get some stuff out of my field of view, like our nerd Slack group. I don't need our pastor throwing me off by putting pictures of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or something like that, as he's wont to do from time to time. Okay. All right, let's see here. We got Christopher. Dave, make sure you have HPF on Curtis. HPF, tell me real quick. What am I missing?
High pass filter.
High pass filter. Thank you. Let me go to.
If it's under 60 hertz, it'll pull it out.
All right, let me go to your. Where is the stupid? All right, Curtis and plugins. Let's add one.
Welcome, Ray from Indiana. We got Indiana. We got the Netherlands. From Texas, I think it's about the same distance to Indiana as it is to the Netherlands. But just kidding, Ray. You know my love for Indiana. It's in my heart. Just love it. Go Hoosiers. But plus, a real good friend who's not currently at Purdue, but will be back there in a matter of weeks. With
boom,
you.
boom,
So,
boom. The hum is gone. Thank you, Christopher.
There, except for it feels a little cold to her sometimes. So, yeah. The Netherlands, what's the temperature in the Netherlands right now? I just don't even know. I would assume it's way better than it is here.
A
because
million
it's
times.
really, really hot here, even though we've got a cloud cover today, maybe some rain coming through, so it can be hot and humid instead of just hot. So that's great. Wonderful. So, yeah. All right, UK's in the house. There we go. We're getting everybody in. So, very cool.
All right, so let's see here. Let me jump over and get to the chat, all the chat. Let's see. All right, cool. I think we are good. All right, guys. So if you guys have any questions or anything, be sure to drop them in the chat. If you put a Q in front of it, that'll help it stand up. Obviously, if you have a super chat, we're definitely going to grab it. So if you do a super chat, I said do. If you do a super chat, then we will be sure to say to mention you and all that. Let's see. Petra says, I was in Upper State New York a couple of months ago. You sure were. Could help with a church production based on vMix and PTZ optics cameras. They stream to Vimeo. Cool. That's awesome. That is really cool. We're actually going to talk about PTZ optics. We have a couple at our church. I love those. Love those things.
They're handy little guys.
Yes, they are. All right, guys, I'm going to pull the music down. Alrighty, and let's stop it. Thank you, Justin, for the reminder. Justin's like our floor director. I love it. Got a remote floor director. Doesn't get much better than that. Okay. So let's just make sure that everything's working. Let me pull this over here. Boom. Slides are working. There we go. That's awesome. I love it. See Curtis looking beautiful. There we both are. All right. Here we go, guys. What camera should I buy? What microphone? What mixer? It gets difficult, especially when you've got budget constraints. Today we're going to be talking about how to get over a little bit of that analysis paralysis by showing you some of the hardware that we use at our church and that we love. It's kind of our go-to list of hardware. If we've not met before, my name is Dave Curley, and I am a creator for about 30 years or so. I think I technically started in 1991, Curtis. With me, as always, is my partner in crime, Curtis James. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good to see everybody here. Glad we get to talk about some good gear, some things that maybe can help you out through the process, but we got to figure out what it is first.
So, Curtis, I started like real-time video production, like doing TV shows and stuff, like a week before I actually started college. That was 1991 for me. When did you start like doing production stuff? I mean, I started helping my dad, like in like 79, mixing the services at our church, very basic setup. So I mean, I go back that far. When did you like first put your hands on some equipment in a professional, people are paying attention kind of way?
Yeah, so I started running sound when I was in high school, and we had a pretty big youth group. So every week I would run a production with about 500 in attendance, 500 to 600 in attendance, full band, full board, all that kind of stuff. So at 15, I was running my own weekly, pretty large setting service all the way. So that would have been like, what, 89?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Before, like, it seems like anybody's born in today's world. Everybody I walk around, if I say 89, they're like, wow, I guess I was alive then. But yeah, so it's been a minute,
Yeah. No, that's cool. Over the years, I've used a lot of different equipment. I've solved a lot of problems, and I'll tell you what, one of the best ways to find the equipment that you love is the equipment that solves a major problem for you. And it's funny. It's like that ends up being like your go-to thing. I know one of the we were talking actually pre-show we were talking about hum, and because we were getting some hum coming off of your audio connection there, and one of the pieces of equipment that you mentioned kind of helps with doing getting rid of hum and having a good clean signal. How about we start right there, okay? Because I know that is something that happens on stages a lot. Various pieces of acoustic guitars, electric guitars, just a piece of audio equipment sometimes can be benefited by this one little magic, relatively inexpensive piece of hardware.
Yeah, so when we talk about like my favorite things, a few of my favorite things, we could break out in song, go sit on the steps in Austria. But when we talk about kind of the dynamics, it's funny because we started talking about what to mention in this, and it's funny I have something on my list that's pretty expensive, something on my list that's pretty inexpensive, and then something on my list that can be even free. And so this is the middle one, and it's a direct box, a DI box, as we like to call them. And DI boxes have changed a ton. And this one right here is you're going to look at it and be like, wow, you are old if that's the DI box picture you're putting up. This is a super basic DI box from Hosa. It's $32. DIs have really changed in the recent years, and we've added all kinds of features to them. We've made them active. As a matter of fact, I've got one right here that I use with my acoustic guitar, sometimes called a Para DI. It's an LR Baggs Para DI. It's a great preamp for an acoustic. It gives you some extra controls. It's a great product. But when it comes to a direct box, what we're trying to do is we're trying to normally go from something high impedance to low impedance. So we're going from an instrument like a keyboard, a guitar, a processor of some sort, and we're going into this box, and this box is changing that to a low impedance XLR output. Now, you may have those little like cigar looking tubes that have a quarter inch on one side and an XLR on the other side, and it has a little transformer in the middle. Those are okay, but they're going to create as many problems as they solve. Whereas a DI box, it does a lot of things. It can help you eliminate hum and noise. It can give you the ability to manipulate some things. But most importantly, it just takes that high impedance input and turns it into something low impedance to send to your board. And you probably have these on your stage. You may have active DIs. You may have passive DIs. This one is a passive DI. It doesn't have any power supply. Radial has kind of dominated the DI market in recent years, and they make great stuff. I am not knocking it. You can get a Radial passive DI for $130. So almost $100 more than the one that we just pictured for you. And it's good. It's great. It has neat features on it, all that kind of stuff. It's still just a DI. And you can say, well, it's quieter, or it's this, or it's that. Is it $100 quieter? Is it, 3-4 times the cost quieter? And then there's these active DIs, which are really popular right now. And that is a DI that has a power supply in it. It'll have a battery. Maybe it's taking phantom power from the board, which is more common. That DI maybe has a preamp where it can boost signal and do some different things like that. But it also requires a power supply. You got to have phantom power to it. So if somebody doesn't have the button pushed, then it doesn't work, all that kind of stuff. And we run into the dilemma of it's just a much more complex piece of electronics. So there's more failure opportunities for it. An old school DI at $32 is going to do the work you need. You always want your DIs like this one to have a ground lift switch on it, which it has on one end. And then it has, another thing that's nice about this one is it has an instrument level switch where you can actually take your instrument level and drop it down to line level. And so that helps you keep from sending really hot signal off to your board. But you can turn that off and on. A lot of older DIs don't have that switch, and a lot of passive DIs don't have that switch. That switch is worth it because it does give you the ability to kind of buffer that and control it. A ground lift, that's going to eliminate a lot of hum issues with guitars, amps, processors, different things on stage. That ground lift switch can save your life sometimes, and so that's what it's there for. But I am definitely a fan, and I'm showing my age. I understand this. I'm a big fan of a simple passive DI. It's something I can throw in my guitar bag, and I can go to another country. I can pull it out. I can plug it into any system that's out there, and I'm never going to have to worry, is it going to work? Do I have phantom power? Is there phantom power working? Is it turned on? We ran into it on our stage not that long ago where we have active DIs, and somebody hadn't flipped on the phantom power switch for that channel. And so they were having all kinds of trouble. And I walked through the room and they're like, we don't know why this isn't working. And I said, well, is the phantom power on the channel? Oh, and they go back and turn it on. Everything works. So for the active, they have some great features. I'm not knocking them. But when it comes down to it, I want my DI to do what a DI does. And if I want it to do something special, I want to buy a specialized DI specifically for what I'm wanting to do, like this, or like a Sans amp for your bass amplifier. That's going to give you something that functions as a DI, but also as a preamp with different shaping controls and things like that that are instrument specific. So I really do encourage you to look at it, and also to realize that when you need a DI, you don't have to break the bank. You don't have to spend $130, $200, $250 on a DI, because buying 4 DIs at $250, that's going to be $1,000 expenditure. There's a lot you can do with that amount of money. So this is one of my favorite things. It's simple. It's straightforward. It's going to get the job done for you, or something very much like it out there. It doesn't knock the quality of the other things. It doesn't mean that maybe there's another DI that could be a little bit quieter. But when it comes to it, the price point makes this so functional. They hold up. They're durable. They're really good. And so it's a great way to control your sound, to get the right levels coming to your board, to eliminate some hum and some things like that, and give you that. And then a lot of these, especially these older passive ones, actually work 2 ways, where you can actually go in XLR and out and out 1/4 inch the other side. These are mono. These specific ones are mono. There are passive and active stereo, where you would plug in 2 different lines and all that kind of stuff too. It's really just 2 mono DIs is what it is. But depending, some of them may have a stereo plug or whatever, if somehow you've got that coming in. But it's a good way to eliminate hum. If you've got a hum on your channel, even from another peripheral up in your booth, you can run through a DI, and a lot of times you can eliminate the noise on that channel, even if it's some other kind of peripheral. So that's one of the big ones for me. It's simple, it's cheap, and it works.
That is awesome. I know that I've used direct boxes for various things at various times, and just the ability to eliminate a cycle hum, to get that hum out of the way. There are times, you and I know, and anybody who's been doing audio, live audio, or recording audio for any amount of time knows that there's a hard and fast rule that we try to stick to, which is you don't run your audio cables parallel or near, ideally, your electricity cables. Sometimes that is an impossible feat. And if you do have to run them close to each other, instead of running them parallel with each other, if they need to cross, you want them to cross, perpendicular to each other, so that little point at the center of the X is like the only point of contact. Try to minimize it. When you're running parallel with it, you end up really picking up some hum, and they don't have to be like right next to each other. Sometimes they can be, depending on what the electricity is like in the building. And what the cabling that you're using is like, it can be, inches apart and still be picking up, that interference and stuff. Well, a direct box can help fix that problem when you're not in an optimal type of wiring situation and stuff. So like Curtis said, having a couple of those in your bag, if you got a road kit or anything like that, I know we've got like a closet at the church that has several of them stacked up, and it's like, grab up, we got this guitar guy. Okay, go grab a box for him. These things are fantastic. You can't have enough of those within reach, especially when you're bringing in, musicians, from all over the place. 1 week it's this guy, 1 week it's this guy, 1 week it's this girl, so definitely grab a lot of those. Curtis, I'm going to talk about cameras for just a sec, because that is something that people are always asking about. What's the best camera for live streaming for your church? What's the, should I get this camera? Should I go camcorder? Should I buy a big camera? Should I get a cinema camera? Should I get a DSLR? Should I get a mirrorless camera? All this kind of stuff. People are getting ready to spend a lot of money on a camera and aren't sure what to do. Now, when I was putting this together, I was thinking about the camera that what is the best all-around camera. Okay, that's kind of how I approached it. I don't want to get into the debate about whether we should be using a DSLR or a mirrorless, multiple lenses, all that sort of thing, because when you do know what you're doing, when you are more seasoned, you can make those kind of decisions, especially as your volunteer or your team, the people that you're working with, as their experience goes, and you can trust them with more advanced features than starting to look at cinema cameras and things where you're going to be changing out lenses, and you're willing to put in $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 into a camera. Those kind of decisions can be made later. Right now, I think for me, Curtis, the best cameras that I have had, gosh, I've had 10, this is 14, so I've had 15-ish years of use with these cameras, is the Canon Vixia line of camcorders, right? I know you're familiar with them, you've seen them. And they go from the $300 little palm camcorders, which I've actually got one sitting on, or two of them sitting on the desk over here, to the much higher end cameras. The ones that I've been using is the XA series, which is the one here on the left. The XA is this one. I think it's an XA50. I think is what it is. We have at our church an XA40. And then the little brother to it is the G series. So that one's like a G50 or a G60, something like that. That's in the picture. Both of those camera lines are very, very similar in their quality. The sensor is basically the same. The resolutions are the same. The pricing is a few $100s from one to the other. One of the big benefits of the XA series is, you can see here in the picture, is the addition of that handle. That handle has got two XLR mic inputs on it, which is really handy for getting in good clean audio when you don't have time to set up tons of extra equipment like an outboard recorder or anything like that. What I love about these cameras, both of these cameras, is their flexibility. They're great for doing run and gun shooting. They're great for doing for live streaming. So you can put it on a tripod with a couple of handles. You can plug in your HDMI cable and then run that into your system, and you have a good solid video feed coming in. Continuous power, when you plug in the adapter to it, you don't have to worry about running out of battery. You don't have to worry about it overheating. Unless you're in just an extreme environment. If it's 110 degrees outside, then anything you're using is going to be overheating. So, in general practice, we get concerned sometimes with the mirrorless cameras, and we definitely get concerned with the DSLRs. Or some of the older DSLRs, about overheating issues or time limits on, I got a 29-minute time limit on this before I have to cycle it off. Actually, Curtis, I did a recording at a podcast studio that Zandra and I are working with, and we helped them build out their podcast studio. And the lady had several different types of DSLR. She had a couple of Nikons. She had a Canon. And one of the things that I was running into was we're doing a half-hour show, and we're doing it in 3 10-minute segments, basically. And what I was running into was that we would, I'd get the cameras turned on, and I'd get everything set and get everybody ready, and we'd kind of, how are we going to do the intro? Okay, we're going to talk about this, and before I realized it, one of them was like click, and it had turned off, because I had spent 30 minutes in prep work, and okay, so now we got to stop. So one of the things I had to do was I would turn it off, and sometimes the settings would be off, so I have to readjust the settings and get it just right. And then, all right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. We go through the through the first segment, and then when it's done, okay, somebody needs some water. You got a few minutes. Okay, hang on. I got to reset all the cameras and then start the whole thing over again. And that's a pain. If we're using something like these, if we're using these camcorders, we're getting a lot of ease of use, and that's one of the reasons that I like having them. The quality is impeccable. I mean, it really is, especially for us. We have low light situations a lot in this industry, right? So at our church, our worship service is dim in the room and is really bright on the stage with the lights. So in going back and forth between the lights coming up and the lights going down, these cameras handle it really well. They've got manual settings, so you can set your exposure, you can set your white balance, you can set your focus, you can do all of that. They've got auto settings, so some things you may want to have automatic, like maybe you want to have the focus set to automatic. Well, it tracks faces, it looks for eyes, things like that. You can always touch the screen if you need to. We have that from time to time where the contrast between the Jason, let's say our worship pastor, he may be wearing a dark jacket and the drum cage behind him is dark, and there's some lights on the sides that we see, but right now in the frame, he's kind of dark on a dark background, and it's hard for it to focus. It may say, oh, I want to grab that light that's off to the right, or you got a microphone stand that has a glare on it, and it says, that's what I need to, that's the sharpest thing right there. I need to grab hold of that, and the focus rolls. Well, it's okay. You just tap his face, and the focus stays on that. Absolutely love these. The price difference is, you can get an XA, which is the one with the handle, the bigger one. You can get those for, $1,700, $1,800, $1,900. If you buy a kit that has, a couple of lens adapters, like a wide angle lens adapter or a telephoto, so you can really, stretch that zoom on there. You get a kit, tripod, things like that. It could be over $2,000. The G series, $1,200, $1,300, $1,400. My parents' church, they just bought like a G60 or a G70, and absolutely love it. And the pastor is doing the video. He's setting it up, he's getting it done. Someone is doing the live stream, and then he takes the footage and does the editing and stuff like that. And he's had tremendous success with it. So the XA and the G series from Canon, I can't recommend them enough. They are, start there, I tell people, and then as you add other cameras, you can either add more of these, or you can add higher end cameras or different types of cameras, DSLRs, mirrorless cameras, cinema cameras, things like that. And these will be able to play right alongside of them, and everybody's going to be happy. But to be able to take someone with no expertise at running a camera and put him behind this, you can get great results with very little training. I absolutely love them.
Yeah, and this is a great example of a prosumer item. You know what I
Yes.
mean? This is not a commercial line item.
Mm-mm.
It's not a consumer grade item. It's a prosumer item. And that's really as churches where we land a lot of the time, especially when we're talking about cameras and streaming and those kind of things. We end up in a prosumer line, any kind of video displays, that kind of stuff. Because you get into the commercial stuff and you get into this astronomical cost.
Mm-hmm.
When you get in the consumer stuff, it's too automated. You don't have
Right.
enough control. Lens quality is just not good enough. And so
Right.
when you get something like this in your hand, it's user friendly. It's kind of like it's a utility hitter. You can use it in your
Yep.
service. You can use it to film activities at your VBS. You can use it to shoot something with your pastor in his office, and it's going to manage the lighting. It's going to do all those things well. And it's going to give you a major step up from anything consumer grade. The belief that I can shoot everything with my phone, it's
Mm-hmm.
just not true. You can do
Right.
great stuff with it, but this camera is going to give you the ability to have distance, zoom. It's going to give you the input capabilities you need and all that kind of stuff. And it's going to allow you to do a lot of what you need to do live instead of always needing to connect something else in later and in the edit suite. It'll
Right.
save you a lot of time.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I did back in the Geek Beat days. We set up our live show, Geek Beat Live. We set that up using 3 Canon XA20s, or actually we were using 25s. So if you don't know the way the Canons work, when you have the when the number is ending in a 0 in this line, then it's going to be HDMI. When it ends in a 5, like we got the 20 and then you got the 25. The 25 has HDMI and SDI, which is that's that little twist lock silver connector that looks like the cable that comes out of your wall. It's that kind of a connector. And what's cool about that is an HDMI cable, a really good HDMI cable, you can get 75 feet of distance for. So for us, at our setup, underneath our balcony is where the platform is for our cable, or for our cameras. And you go right up above that, 10 feet, and that's where we start plugging in cameras into computers and doing things like that. And then for us, we actually go behind the booth, so we go another 25, 30 feet. So we've got 40 feet of cable, so that works out just great for us. But let's say I want to take this camera and I want to put it I want to put it on the stage. So I've got 90 to 100 feet from the computer in the back of the control room all the way up to the stage where Curtis is, and I want to put that camera. Well, I'm going to be running. That's as a crow flies. That's a straight distance right there. I'm actually going to have to run maybe 200 feet because I got to snake it through the ceiling. I got to snake it through the walls. I got to go down a column. I got to go across the stage along you end up with a couple of 100 feet. That's what SDI is for. It's great because you can run hundreds, 500, 600 feet with an SDI cable and not have any signal issues. So usually it's an extra $100 or $200 for the camera, but when you have a setup that you need to run that extreme distance, then it's bulletproof. It's great. So anyway, I did like national television, like for a cable network, using these cameras. That's how good they are. So you would be, and that's what I talk about, like value. $2,000, $2,200 for a camera, $1,900 for a camera. Wow, that sure is a whole lot of money. But the fact that it's going to last you for a long time, if you take care of it, it's going to last you for a long time, and you're going to be able to do a lot more than just your live stream. Huge value. So I will step off my Canon XA soapbox. Sorry, folks. I'm passionate about them.
He now has names for all of them.
Yes.
They have little beds in his house that they sleep in.
Lucy, Ricky, Ethel, Fred. Yeah.
It's a little concerning when his daughter's like, "Dad, can you stop spending time with the cameras and be with me?" But, it's still a part of his life.
Yes.
We admit it. Yes. He's working on it, guys. He's working on it.
I have a problem. I'll see y'all at the meetings.
So I said that I had kind of 3 different price ranges that my list fell in, which was just not even on purpose. Mm-hmm. But one of the key pieces that we deal with in audio that we just cannot ignore is the soundboard. The soundboard is essential to what we do. And so as we kind of work with our audio, over the years, we've watched soundboards change a lot. Obviously, we've gone from analog soundboards to digital soundboards. And if you still have an analog board, then you're missing out on basically every major audio advancement in sound mixing technology in the last 15 years or 20 years, because digital technology is the industry standard now in soundboards. And so when we talk about soundboards, it's a different conversation than it was 10 or 15 years ago as far as features and different things like that. With digital becoming the standard, you've got all the big hitters playing in the digital soundboard world. My favorite board out there right now that's not $1 billion is the Allen and Heath SQ series stuff. And the reason is multiple reasons. Now, we live in a world where there's all kinds of digital technology. You've got, PreSonus is still out there, but you've got Allen Heath, you've got Soundcraft, you've got Yamaha, you've got Behringer making stuff. They're making the Midas stuff. There's all these different companies, Digico, whatever. And we've got great digital boards out there made by all these companies. Every one of them is making some really good digital boards. And you could argue real simple, oh, well, I like, the Soundcraft stuff better than the Allen Heath stuff. Well, I actually really like the Soundcraft stuff too. In my last church, that's what I put in there. But the SQ series and some of the stuff that Allen Heath has done, I really love, really a lot like what Soundcraft has done, to be honest with you. And that is, when they got into the digital market, they didn't do what Yamaha did. They got into the digital market and they said, we want to make a board that looks and feels like an Allen and Heath board, but it's digital. And that's what I like about it. As somebody who wants to put my hands on a board, who wants to feel the faders under my fingers, who wants to be able to manipulate things live and not feel like I'm scrolling through 15 different menus. So these companies that have historically made amazing soundboards are still making amazing soundboards, but now they're making their boards with digital technology. And so they didn't copy what, say, the X32 has done with Behringer. They didn't copy what Yamaha has done, which is Yamaha got really into all the different layers and all these kinds of things. With the SQ board, what you have is a simple, straightforward board that can be run a lot like an analog board. So the learning curve is way better. You don't find yourself buried in menus like you would in an X32. There's a lot more control on the surface in front of you. You have more channels in front of you to control because you can get a larger format. And so when we talk about that, we have to realize that you're starting at about $4,000 and you're going to go up to about $6,500 depending on the size you're getting on the SQ board. And you say, gosh, that's so much money. Well, it's how much soundboards cost now. That is a really consistent and competitive price, to be honest with you. You can get a Behringer X32 for in the $3,000 range, and it's, to me, a far inferior board to what you're getting with the SQ series stuff. If you look at Soundcraft stuff, Yamaha stuff, it's all falling in this similar price range. So it's very competitively priced for a high quality where you're getting Allen Heath preamps, which are great preamps, clean, good sounding preamps. You're getting manipulation ability that's comparable to everybody else, where you can go deeper and you can do some fine tuning, but you also have so much more in front of you. So if you're wanting to mess around with your compression, that knob's already there. You don't have to select into a menu, okay, now this knob is compression. No, when you have the channel selected, you already have all that in front of you there, and you can make adjustments on the fly live, and you have more channels in front of you. You're not just looking at 16 channels in front of you before you have to turn the page. You can have a lot of channels in front of you at once, so you're not flipping pages and thinking, oh, I'm turning up the speaker's mic, when in actuality I'm on page 2 and I just turned up the guitar. So all of that stuff helps with live operation. It's clean, it's quiet, it's a great sounding board. It feels good, and I know that may be crazy, but that's a huge thing for me. It feels really good under your fingers. The craftsmanship is really good on this board. I've run really all the different levels of the SQ board. We actually own one that we use in our upper room area. That's one of our worship areas, and I absolutely love it. Now, in our sanctuary, we're using an Advantis board, which is also an Allen and Heath, and it's one of the higher dollar ones, and it's a great board. I actually like running the SQ stuff better, despite the Advantis is a superior board. It's just more menus. It's got more depth to it, whereas the SQ is more at your fingertips, and I really love that. And so if you're looking for a new digital board, I would strongly encourage you to check these out. Hey, you're not going to go wrong if you buy a comparable Yamaha, comparable, Soundcraft or something like that. But this one is really proven itself to be a good board. And when you're considering what you're doing across your campus, realizing that if I get something that is kind of the same format, so I have a bigger SQ board in my sanctuary and I have a small SQ board in my youth room or whatever, then I've got cross-training opportunities. So I've actually got a board that they can learn on, and then they can apply that. And we've got this commonality in our campus, which is really important as we look at it. So it gives you a lot in front of you, a lot at your fingertips. It's a better learning curve than a lot of the digital boards, and the overall build is excellent on these boards. They are great, lots of flexibility, and it's a really popular board right now. Very easy to find. You don't have to go hunt it down because they've done such a good job with it. So when you're looking at a board, I really encourage you, check out the Allen and Heath SQ series. If you're saying, no, we want to spend more, we want to get a higher quality, you're willing to spend $12,000, $14,000. Okay, the Advantis would be something I would definitely check out, especially if it means you're using an SQ board in a smaller format setting. That you can have cross learning about it. Whereas if you're using a Yamaha over here and you're using an Allen Heath over here and you're using a Soundcraft over there and then a Behringer over here, it's not the same. And for all the things out there, and there's definitely more economical ways, this board is going to give you great bang for your buck, and it's gonna hold up well over time. It's a great build, a great product, and I really like it as a sound tech. So I recommend it as kind of one of the top ones out there right now.
Yeah, and I have used both of the boards, the one in our sanctuary, and then the SQ that's across the street in the upper room, and it's very easy for me. I don't sit at a soundboard as much as Curtis does, or as our front of house mixer. I'm not there week to week to week, and I don't sit in a studio and work a big mixing board like I have in the past. To be able to walk up to this and very easily see what's going on and be able to make adjustments very easily. Hey Dave, can you do X and Y? While someone's off in the bathroom or something. Yeah, I can, because there's enough commonality there. There's enough tactile stuff that I can do. I remember when we had that, we had a big old, was that SD9 soundboard? What was that one?
The Digico.
Yeah, the Digico board.
We had a
Digico board, which was a solid board. We've had it for a long time.
Yeah.
But we really had to drill down in the menus to get to things. If I wanted to do a compression setting, I had to grab, either have my oily finger, or we used pencils with good erasers on it. I would have to. I'm looking at the channel. Okay, so I need to solo the channel so I can hear it, and then I need to go into the board. Then I need to hit the EQ. Then I need to go into this thing, and I need to choose the third menu option. And now I can grab onto an EQ setting and drag it up or do whatever. But then I have to back out, and now I can move on to the next channel that I want to look at. The one across the street, I can solo something, and then there's dials up there for some of these things, and I can just tweak a dial, and then there's this common little set of dials that is applied to whatever channel you have selected. It's brilliant. I love that. Very easy to use. The learning curve for someone coming from a dominantly analog world jumping into digital, the transition is very easy, all things considered.
Yeah, and it comes down to the complicated thing for every one of these boards is routing issues.
Mm-hmm.
So just know if you're getting into any new board, you're going to need to learn how to do routing. It's really important, and you want to train other people in it too, because something will go wrong and they'll need to route. So that is something that can get real complicated on all of these digital boards.
Yep.
Routing can be a real pain. So that's the one thing you really watch out for, and that's something you need to watch out for on the SQ and the Advantis, because that's probably the biggest lesson you'll need to learn when you get your hands on it.
So let's talk about cameras again. I want to talk about expanding
you and your cameras.
I know, go figure.
It's all cameras. Dave and cameras. He likes it. You'd think he likes to take pictures of himself or something.
Yeah, something. I don't know. No, I view the world through a window like this. When I'm counseling churches or consulting, there are times when you have a really small team. In which case the media volunteer runs the sound as well as does the live stream and hits the space bar on ProPresenter to go to the next set of lyrics. So you may not have someone that is going to be able to man a camera. You may not have that luxury as you're starting to build out your team. So what options do you have available? A really good option is a PTZ camera, and PTZ Optics, I think, makes some of the best affordable PTZ cameras out there. Now, I used to have this $25,000 Sony PTZ camera. We had one at the studio, and we took it on the road with us. We took it to when we would do like CES or broadcasting from NAB. We would use, a camera like that, and it was fantastic. I mean, the lens on that thing, Curtis, was huge, and the quality was impeccable. Well, We don't have $25,000 at our church to spend on one camera. So what we did was we got a couple of PTZ Optics cameras. There it is. A PTZ Optics cameras. And, when we bought this one, we have two of these. When we bought these, they were $2,100, $2,200 a piece, something like that. The price has actually gone down. These cameras have four types of connecting ability, connectivity. So you can use HDMI, you can use SDI, like we talked about earlier. You can use an IP based type of a setup, or you could use NDI, which is also IP but is a lot higher quality. So NDI is how we have it. NDI, network device interface. It's the ability to take your signal, your really high quality video signal coming in, and push it through the network. Okay, so what we have is we have two of these cameras mounted in our sanctuary, and we have them going into a network switch that is got PoE power on each of those ports, so we don't actually have to plug this camera into its own power socket. We can have the power and the audio and video all going down the network cable, so we can go really far distance using these, which is a really major benefit. Okay. And we've got its own little dedicated network. So, when Curtis is, sitting in the middle of church and he's playing, World of Warcraft or something like that, his gaming is not messing up the video signal coming through.
Did you say something?
Yeah. Sorry. He's playing Forza Racing or Call of Duty or something like that, right there in the middle of the worship service. The video signal is still good and solid, which is a real benefit. But what's cool about these cameras is that you can control them remotely. That's one of the things that I love about them, and that's why they're such a big benefit. We have one person who is running a camera. She's using that XA40 that I talked about. But then we've got these two that are deployed, and I've got a controller in the control room right next to the workstation that I'm sitting at. I can hit camera one, grab onto the joystick, and move that thing around anywhere that I need to. What's really cool is that the broadcast software I use, vMix, which I'm using here right now, and my other broadcast hardware software solution of choice, which is the TriCaster, they can control these as well. So you can plug this in using NDI, and then all of a sudden, the software you're using can start moving that camera around. And what's really cool about them is you can set presets. So I've got presets that are set for, a close-up of the pastor. I've got a preset set up for a medium shot, for a wide shot. I've got shots of the audience. I've actually got it set up. One of the things that vMix lets you do is you can adjust the speed of which that the unit is going to move. So I've set presets that when I set them, I recorded the movement of slow, not fast, not like zzz, zzz, whoop, pop, like that, not jerky, but smooth. So I have this one shot that I love. I have it set on the stage. It's a wide shot of the stage. And then I moved it to pan across the audience, and I set another preset there. So I've got a preset of the audience, at the back of the room, and then I've got the preset set for the stage. And when I go from one of those to the other, the camera just slowly makes that movement. So it gives me a motion shot that's not automated. That's automated, that's not manned. I don't have someone sitting there with the camera doing a slow pan of the audience. Or I also have it set. We've got really nice chandeliers up in our ceiling, and we've got a balcony. So I've actually got a third one that pans up into those lights. So when the song talks about the majesty of God or something, I may have those lights and then pan down, and it goes diagonally, nice and smooth. All of that is being done through presets right there in vMix on an automated camera that is mounted underneath the balcony. I've got two of them. They're great. There are other brands out there that are less expensive. Okay, so a friend of mine, AJ, the CEO, he does a lot of installs all around the country, all around the world, actually, at churches, and he's using a brand. Sometimes he'll use PTZ Optics. Sometimes he'll use an off brand that is maybe a third the price, and he's having good good success with those as well. So actually, I haven't even mentioned this to Curtis, but our worship pastor has said, "Hey, why don't you start putting together a list for the next type thing?" I'm actually going to put one of those on there, and for the $600 or $700, we can get it and test and see if it's going to work. And if it is going to work, then for the price of 2 PTZ optics cameras, we can actually get 2 more. Or for the price of 1 PTZ optics, we can actually get 2 more of these. And if the quality is the same, then we've got like hyper amounts of value, which is great. PTZ cameras are a great supplement, or they're a great primary camera if you have little to no volunteers whatsoever. And if your service, especially if your service is not a hyper dynamic service where there's a lot of movement on the stage, then a PTZ camera can meet those needs for you. It can give you movement, can give you multiple shots, and give you ease of use because you can control it right there and not actually have to have someone standing there running the camera. So good food for thought.
PTZs, man, lots of versatility. It is one of those things where you be careful about your movement, but boy, it lets you get anywhere in the room you want to get because they're so easy to mount in place and give you some angles you'll never get with human camera operators. So very, very helpful. Yeah,
very much so.
So I've got one more thing before we run out of time.
Okay, go for it.
We're running out of time fast. We've talked a lot, but it is your software. Now I'm cheating because it's not really one thing; it's really 2 things. But it's okay because what's Dave going to do? Turn me off, right? So, so the software that you use, there are times, and this is mainly applying to post-production, there's times where we've recorded something, we've got something, and it's got noise, it's got a weird hum in the background, it's got whatever, something like that. And in post-production, we want to go in and we want to clean it up. There's lots of softwares out there that you can use. Pro Tools Intro is free, and it is a fully operational version of Pro Tools. It just limits how many channels you can use, and they're going to give you all the compression capabilities you need. You can gate stuff. You can go in and you can notch filter something out. You can EQ something if the pastor's mic, guest preacher, and just never got it right and he never sounded right. There's all kinds of things that you can do in these softwares. So whether it's Pro Tools Intro, there's also, if you've got an Adobe Creative Cloud, then you may have Audition. Audition has good stuff in that. You may have Logic from something else you're using. All those things are good. Pro Tools Intro, Pro Tools is the industry standard, so it's always good to steer yourself toward it. It is a resource hog, so just realize it'll chomp up the resources on your computer, so you got to close everything else out. It's a great software. And the other thing I like is something that not many people use. It's called Audio Tools, and there's different apps out there like this one. But this is called Audio Tools. It's an app on my iPad, and I love it. And so, for example, this one has an RTA. This is a full real-time RTA that allows me to be able to look at it and be able to just analyze what frequencies are happening in my room. And so I can find feedback, I can find resonant tones, I can find, what frequency a hum is at or something like that. So I can go in my board and set up a filter. It's got decibel meters. It's got all kinds of things. You can actually buy additional, it's like in-app purchases. But these are things you can use live that can be really, really helpful for analyzing what's going on, correcting things. So there's tools like that are available to you. You don't even have to add another microphone. It's very accurate. I've used it against some other analyzation tools, real high-end tools with big, expensive microphones hooked up to them. And it's basically the same. It's pretty staggering, actually. So something like Audio Tools is a great tool to use in a live setting. When I run, a lot of times I'll just have that set up and just kind of go in the background, just in case I hear, what was that? I can look over and I can see, hey, what frequency range is that happening in, or whatever. And so lots of options for you. Your boards also have some of those options, but your screens are a lot smaller a lot of the time, depending on what you have. And you may be wanting to do something else with that screen. And so it's a good isolated, and it gives you what's happening in your room, not just what's coming through your board. So cheap or inexpensive ways to use some software tools to kind of help with what you're doing week in and week out. So that's kind of my number 3.
Awesome. My third one is expensive, but you can do a lot with it, and that is the Mac Studio. The Mac Studio is like a double iMac if you think about it. In fact, when you look at it, it's like they took two iMacs and stacked them on each other. We have a Mac Studio at the church that we're using for Pro Presenter. One of the reasons that we got that machine, which I mean, we could have got an M1 or an M2 Mac Mini and 16 gigs of RAM and run Pro Tools on it just fine. But we got whichever one, this like the M1 Max, M1 Pro Max or something like that. Whatever the higher end one with more memory. What's cool about it is when Apple put this together and came up with the silicon that they're using, the chips that they're using, and the GPUs that they're using, you end up with, when you're using a like a Mac with Apple Silicon, it's like you've got many computers instead of just one computer, which is really cool. The symbiosis between the GPU cores and the CPU and all that symbiosis. Wow, I'm really getting nerdy here. The way they work together, the way they handle the different processes and things like that, there's nothing happening on the PC side, on the Intel side or the AMD side yet, that can match it. What's cool about the Studio is that in our case we have multiple physical HDMI outputs going to different screens. The confidence monitor, the big screens, the screen sitting at the desk, things like that. But then we also have NDI outputs. So we're sending out multiple NDI network video streams, HDMI quality, high frame rate video going out over the network. This machine is processing all of that. So we've got 2 or 3 feeds coming into my vMix system from this one machine while it's feeding the screens, while it is playing video, while it is doing animations and all that for the slides. It's robust. It can handle a lot. Now, here's where the value comes in. You get a powerhouse of a machine. If you're using it only for 2 or 3 hours on Sunday morning, then it seems like we just spent a whole lot of money to get very little use out of it. But when you are constrained budget-wise, this machine can also be your editor. So you can, as the creative or the worship pastor, as the creative leader, you can go sit, in your booth and go ahead and get all the editing done, get all the creative made for the service. You can get the videos edited and published on YouTube. You can do all the different versions. You can make your shorts. You can do all this sort of stuff. You can use Photoshop. You can use the Adobe Suite. You can use Final Cut. You can do all of that sort of stuff. So you can get a whole lot more use out of this box than just the Sunday morning. So the Mac Studio, it's pricey and it's well worth it. And just like any of the computers, you're going to be able to get a good 5 years plus of use out of this, especially since this one literally just sits on the desk. You're not throwing it in your bag and running around and beating it up on the road or anything like that. So it's a good investment. You get great value. If you are, if you don't care about what environment, whether you're a Windows environment or a Apple environment, this one little box, this will beat out a similarly priced PC performance wise. You can't go wrong with it.
Yeah, it's a beefy little guy, and it can get a lot of work done. So, yeah, definitely a great product when you compare it to what else is out there. And that is, man, that's what we have. We've got a lot of different things that we want to help you guys with. We want to help you find equipment that's useful. And sometimes it's going to cost. Sometimes you got to save up for it, but it's worth saving up to get the right stuff. Now, these aren't the only options out there. Obviously, there's cheaper options and more expensive options for everything we've talked about. But these are the things we really like that we feel like you can use to engage your congregation, to amplify the gospel, and really bring out what you're trying to accomplish through your ministry there at your church, through your technology. And we want to help you do that. We're so glad you've joined us. I hope you can apply some of this. Maybe some of these pieces of equipment will be helpful for you in your ministry. And so you guys go out and get it done.
Awesome. Good deal. By the way, folks, if you're still watching, we just ended officially for the recording. But if you are looking to get started, go to easylivestreaming.com, grab our free guide, Live Streaming for Churches the Easy Way, grab a copy of that. It is a great resource that we've put together. We mentioned some of this hardware in there. We mentioned some of the software. We can show you how to use live streaming or how you can use live streaming in your ministry, how you can get started using live streaming in your ministry, like literally while you're reading the guide. If you're sitting at the church and you're going through this guide, you could stop for a minute and start live streaming and, start making live streaming a part of your ministry. So it's really cool. Go to easylivestreaming.com. So anything in the chat?
One of the questions I saw pop up earlier was about DI boxes, and it was talking about microphones. Okay. You can use a DI to clean up a microphone audio. The answer is yes, but it depends on what you're using. If you're using a real inexpensive microphone that maybe has like a 1/4 inch plug on it, which there are plenty of them, or something that's going from like a mini or something like that, then you can use a DI to clean that up. And there's DIs that can help you do that. When it comes to, if you're getting buzz on a normal XLR run microphone, that's a balanced line all the way through. And so you probably have a problem with your microphone or with your cable if you're getting a hum on that. And so you actually want to be really careful with that, because it's possible that you've got, a ground loop or something on that channel, and it'll cause your mic to shock somebody. I mean, not like kill them, but it'll get your attention. I've had it happen when you're singing and you touch the mic and it just shocks you, and you're like, wow.
Look, Curtis the skeleton.
Lips, Yeah, literally. Like, psh. All right, so... But so DIs aren't really made for that. Now, if you're in a really odd situation where something really weird's going on, and you run through a DI and then back through a DI or something, you could possibly clean up the signal, but it would basically be because you're lifting that ground and eliminating it at some point and then kind of reinitiating it. So when it comes to that, if you're getting a hum on a mic that's an XLR cable, you really need to look at, how are my ends? Do I have any loose connections on the cables? Is there a loose connection inside the microphone? And then on top of that, the other aspect is just, overall room power and those kinds of things. So those things can happen. One thing, and this is super rare, but it does happen. If you're dealing with a passive mic, so you've got an SM58, it's not phantom powered, and you have phantom power on the channel, there's a rare occasion where phantom power will cause noise on a channel where it's not functioning, it's not being used. And so one thing, if you're getting a hum, it's always good to just turn that phantom power off. It's probably not the problem, but it could be. And so that's another thing to consider.
Yeah, that makes sense. So Justin over in the UK mentioned that using a Canon camcorder, he's getting, like, when it hits a screen, he's getting some flicker on that screen. Christopher mentioned it in the chat, but just so that everybody knows, one of the things that you need to be aware of with the LED lights that we have, as well as the televisions, the screens, some pastors, some churches will have like the screens that are projected on the walls. Others may have the screens that are projected on the walls, and then maybe an actual screen on a cart right behind them on the stage, or you could have an LED wall. You have to set your cameras to account for the frequency of the light that's being emitted from these LED devices, right? So usually the rule of thumb is whatever the frame rate is that you're shooting, so say 30 frames a second, you want to set your shutter speed, the number of in your shutter speed to be double that. So 1/60 would be the shutter speed that you wanted. So 1/60th of a second. You'd want that for your shutter speed if you're doing 30 frames a second video. If you're doing 24 frames a second, some cameras will allow you to literally dial in the number. Okay, I know my Panasonic GH4s and GH5s allow me to dial in some really odd number if I want to, but generally the closest thing to 24 frames a second would be a shutter speed of 1/50. Okay, 25 being doubled gives you 50. 24 gets you close. Depending on the brightness of the television, you may want to lower the. Let's see. It's like you turn up the contrast. You leave the brightness at like 50%, but then you take the backlight and you turn that down all the way, and that gives you like the consistency. Or maybe you turn the backlight up all the way, and it gives you consistency so that you can set your shutter speed to 1/60 if you're shooting 30 frames a second, and that flicker goes away. That rolling, that line that you see kind of creeping on the screen ends up going away. So play with that and dial that in so that your lights aren't flickering, as they're glowing on the wall. The television screen is not flickering. Find that balance where everything looks super smooth. Sometimes you can get away with it if it's not perfectly in sync. You can get away with it because it's close enough that it happens so slowly that the person watching it is not going to see it. But if you're like scrubbing through, all of a sudden you see it happening. So play with it, test, but your shutter speed will fix that problem for you. All right. I hope this has been helpful, guys.
Thanks for jumping in, guys. Appreciate it.
Yes. And let's see, Curtis, you will be here next week. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But you won't be the
following. I got 2 more weeks before I head out. So then I'll be out for 2.
Yeah, he'll be out for 2. He's doing a mission trip. So
Wi-Fi's not very good in the village. Just saying.
Yeah. So. That would be awesome to try to bring you in the village. Just he's gonna be. Where are you going?
Belize.
Yeah, it's kind of humid there. Yes, it's kind of hot and humid there. So if we did have him on, you would just see beads of sweat coming down his. It looked like we had a water hose on him. Awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, you guys have a great week. Take everything you've learned and use it to go change lives.
Bye, guys.